Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, and we are here with you as we are every day to bring you the latest in Gen AI news and let you know whether it is essential, important, or optional. I'm here with all the GAI Insights crew today. We have a nice full house, and we have a great slate of articles. Of course, we will talk about the new model from Anthropic. We will look at a state of cloud report from Bessemer Venture Partners, which sounds like something we wouldn't cover, except they talk about AI constantly as kind of the new foundations for cloud activity. And we will talk about Roblox and much more. So with that, we will dive right in. Ankaj, let's kick off. Though I don't see your.
Thanks, David. Yeah, the screen is just coming up.
All right.
Okay. So the first one that we have for today comes from Anthropic, and they have launched Cloud 3.5 Sonnet, their latest model, and it claims to surpass all the existing models on all different evaluation parameters, and it has the speed and cost of a mid-tier model, Claude 3 Sonnet.
Yes, really interesting development. If you could pull up that chart while we're tracking so we could see where this model sits among the others, that would be great. And Adam, we will start off with you for your reactions.
That one, you just passed it.
Yeah, we're going to want to look at that and the one above it. But this is essential news. Look right there at all the places where it is the leader, even over GPT 4.0. And this is their middle model, right? Sonnet. You see just to the right of it, Opus there. That's their strongest performing model, but that's the version 3. So this is the first 3.5 we've seen from Anthropic. And you see, so now their middle model is actually outperforming GPT 4.0. And they haven't even brought their Opus 3.5 Opus to market yet. So this is a big deal for that reason alone. Everyone can go use it, try it right now at Claude.ai. It's free to use. You'll hit a usage limit pretty quickly, but you'll definitely get a taste for what it could do. I had some code I've been wrestling with GPT I did a few hours and I went to bed, and then this came out, and I just copy and pasted it over and first try it, fixed it, figured out what was wrong and made it work perfectly. Yeah, it's definitely worth checking out. It's an exciting competition in the market right now.
Yeah, and as we were chatting about before the show, their pivot to the enterprise is very clear in this announcement. The language is throughout. The pricing obviously is now super competitive. They're definitely aiming for that market, and they're, from the looks of this product, I think they're in a good position to make some headway. What does anyone else have any thoughts on this?
No,
Well,
go ahead. I was just going to say I would rate as essential as well. I don't think you actually said the rating, Adam, but yeah, essential. It's just fun. I mean, if you've just been a bystander in this stuff and really haven't played around with the tools, start here. I mean, just the cool things you can do, and we'll get into it later. But when you start thinking about what this is going to do to software programming, what this is going to do to the attention economy, the attention economy now, Facebook is dominant. We're going to have all kinds of end users using this to do fun things. What it's going to do to professional services is just spectacular.
I think also it really starting to line up where the battle is. John, you've talked about articulately how this is a battle of the three big cloud providers, and for the enterprise, you're seeing how OpenAI, Microsoft's still doing a great job. This rumor about them about picking up a depth is stunning. AWS getting their act together finally, and Google, at least on enterprise, remaining the caboose. And I could see last year being the year of the OpenAI pilot through Azure. This year, kind of getting, starting to do budgets, and then next year really having those budgets explode of those three providers. I mean, this is way too strategic. Amazon's got to figure out, do they want to be a player in enterprise or not? And they are backing it up, looks like.
Yeah. So I also like at the end of the article, they talk about privacy and security, and they're very conscientious about this. This is and how they're approaching it, and with several layers and getting through the benchmarks and like is very noteworthy. Yeah, I agree that our audience absolutely has to know about it.
And literally to that point, I think it's very clever because if I'm a Claude sales rep, I'm saying, why we go to OpenAI? They just shredded their safety thing here. Their founder left to go do a brand new one that is safe. And how could you possibly risk your corporate brand on that?
Correct. And they are putting it prominently in the release, right? So I think that's a very smart move.
The only caveat I have to this, the only downside I see though is I believe they pulled all of these metrics. They did this all together, or they did this all, right? It wasn't anyone external.
Yeah.
So that's the only caveat I would have to this is I think they pulled all these metrics. They pulled this together. That's the only thing I'm like, okay, but they pulled this all internally, I believe. That's the only thing I would just make sure I keep into context, that it wasn't somebody external. Unless I'm reading this wrong.
Well,
I want to say that.
Yeah, but at least from a safety perspective, I believe they mentioned how there was external reviews. So there's that. I would say that the one thing they haven't solved, which is safety-ish related, is, we still don't know how this model was trained initially, right? Again, this one still has the potential IP issues that we hear a lot of questions about how to tackle. That would be the only knock on their pitch of, we're the ones that you should trust. You've still got that one foundational thing, but I mean, this is impressive. And as Luda and I were saying, I'm a heavy ChatGPT user and I only want so many subscriptions, but this new model is starting to pique my interest, and I'm definitely going to have to start trying this one out and putting it in the mix and testing it against OpenAI and seeing maybe I will make a switch. We'll see.
Amanda, you're not suggesting in a multi-billion-dollar careers at risk type of industry that a vendor coming out in a model who's not in leadership would have their thumb on the scale, are you?
No.
Okay.
Not at all, Paul.
Never ever happens in high tech.
No.
Yeah, to the personal data use, they specifically claim at the end of the article that to be trained on your data, to put it in the training pool, you have to opt in, and otherwise it's not used. So that's an interesting also angle.
But
not trained on any.
Sorry, can one of you bring my screen up while we're talking? It's sitting backstage.
But look, go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, I know, Paul.
I was just thinking at least people could be looking at like what it's doing here in the background while we're talking about it. So I had it make like an interactive button for me, and you'll see it has the chat on the left, and you can actually see your web page or the code real time on the right, and it'll actually load the page. So I had it go from just a button to let's have orange and purple buttons, and then I said, you know what, let's make some additions so that it actually keeps score, right, of how many you've clicked of each. And within just a couple of chats here, I've gotten to the point where it's a game keeping score, and it has the purple and the orange, and see how the dots are getting smaller. If you click them when they're really small, they're worth 4 or 5 points. And if you click them when they're bigger, they're only worth 1 or 2. But I mean, this kind of capacity to be able to literally, while we were on this call, I just made this, and you can see it and interact with it real time. It's just going to open up so much for so many people.
Yeah,
it's already better than. I mean, this is one of the coolest features in it, and I hope people get out there and start playing.
Yeah, when I was working on a piece last night that I was writing, and I was thinking about the fact that a lot of these companies still have a bit. It's less about like let's improve what the models can do, but it's a little bit more right now about like how do we improve the user experience, right? There's still kind of a bit of a learning curve in how you prompt and what you can see, what you can do, and I think there's just so many little tweaks they could make to the user experience that would actually put them ahead in some areas.
Yeah.
and you see they're still fighting over like how much do we abstract away, right? Like I find ones that give you assistance where you can like click on like, oh, make this more concise, do this. A lot of times it's too abstracted away, and then you've got kind of these chat interfaces where it's like completely raw and you really got to figure out the nuances. There's some like happy medium in there that hasn't been achieved yet that I think will increase the usability for these for more users, and
Yeah.
this is a nice step in the right direction.
One of the things I think a lot of the conversation is missing, and we will help with, is people haven't really thought through. They've been talking about speeds and feeds and efficiencies and so forth. They haven't thought through the power of a small team doing this. So, I during one of the first Iraq War, there was 1,500 special forces folks who were brought in by the Western part of the Mediterranean Fleet of the U.S., and they went up against 90,000 Iraqis. 1,500 to 90,000. And, the power of small teams with intelligence, we're going to see new firms come out. Imagine a half a dozen people who really understand these tools deployed with capital in small areas. We're going to see these small teams, or you go back to the Russians when they did the, Fancy Bear and Baby Bear. That the whole cost of that Russian disinformation campaign that is laid out in the Mueller indictments was only $1.5 million a month. And they create, I mean, just think about it, that's cheaper than like one missile, right? And they had unbelievable impact if you look at what they did. So I think what people aren't grokking is in industrialization, you had, unbelievable leverage of capital and, productivity. We're going to see new organization forms that are just going to blow people's minds.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that a little bit more when we look at the Bessemer piece, which we should probably move on because we're 11 minutes in and we have.
Yeah, one quick thing, David. I just want to say, Adam, fantastic work. Fantastic work creating at such a short period of time.
That's
and
awesome.
David, a quick thing on yours. I think your comments on the interface is really interesting, but I think it's going to show how we're going to continue to see a bifurcation on B2C models and B2B. B2B wants the API mostly. They don't want that interface. And I think a lot of these companies are going to have to decide in their scarce R&D dollars, are they going to be optimizing the engine for the API or optimizing that UI for the B2C experience?
Yeah, that's true.
All right, clearly essential. Thanks for the demonstration, Adam. Very cool. And Akash, I'm not seeing your screen so that we can go on to the next article, or I would push us on. Did we lose him?
The screen is coming. Yes, just give me a second. I thought I was sharing the screen. Sorry.
All right, here we go. Take us
Yes.
on to next.
Yes. So this one from Roblox, it talks about how Roblox is developing 4D generative AI.
Yes, and they consider the fourth dimension to be interaction. What did we think about this one, Amanda?
Yeah, so I mean, it's great in theory, but right now it's theory. So I don't know that they've faced it. They've said over and over again that they're facing challenges in getting there, right? So I think Onkosh literally summarized it with that they want to build immersive experiences. So if they get there, great. Maybe it'd be important or essential, but right now it's very optional.
I agree it's optional, but I observe the children working on Roblox in my family and around me. I have an account, so it's just like it's people are getting into this and really big time, hours spent. Amazing. So I think they're getting there already.
Yeah, I think it said they had something like 70 million daily users or something like that. I mean, it was a number that really blew me away.
Yeah, it is. It is quite a good experience. Apparently, I don't use it as much, but yeah. So optional though for our readership, I think.
All right, we will press on from this one as we want to catch up on time a little bit. So let's go to the next one.
Yes. So the next one comes from Adapt. So it's an AI startup which is in talks with Microsoft for a deal.
All right, rumor mill, but as we've seen, it's probably not too far from the truth. What do you think, Luda?
Optional for our readership, I think. It's, again, applaud to Microsoft big time. They're watching. They have their fingers into a lot of startups, and they're getting good talent as a result. This is a talent acquisition, I think, and like they did with the other startup, Inflection, that they put into their fold. I think this is marvelous, and they will avoid the antitrust laws and the like. So great, but optional.
Yeah, the phrase "steel hand and velvet glove" comes to mind when I see Mr. Nadella. You know, he is absolutely ruthless, brutal, and fantastic strategically. And unfortunately, I agree with you, Luda, that he's outsmarting the antitrust folks for sure. But the industry in general has. I mean, you look at the tech. No industry in the history of the United States has avoided regulation and pushback better than tech.
Yeah.
Oil didn't, pharma didn't. You know, they managed to slip under the radar beautifully.
I think also the indication we're going to see a lot more acqui-hires. I was with a VC 2 weeks ago, and they're seeing acqui-hires being valued at $2 to $4 million per AI engineer. And I was also last week with a CEO of a company that's valued at $20 billion, tech company, and they were a little behind. They are now catching up. They have 3 major projects they're kicking off, and they're planning to do acqui-hires from 2 to 4 people for each one of them, because I know they can't acquire talent enough. And they were asking me, do you know venture-backed startups that are 12 to 18 months old and struggling, but have 4 or 5 AI developers been working together? So talent is the scarcity.
Yeah, look, they're getting a couple of the authors for the Transformer paper. I mean, come on, that's worth the dough. Right there.
Totally, yes.
With the dough and potential the additional regulatory aggravation, right? I mean, the Inflection deal is already being scrutinized and has an investigation open, so they're kind of like, well, we'll just keep on flowing those legal dollars out because they think it's worth it, right?
Yeah, that's kabuki.
I mean, to me, investigation just means I now have a chance to manage a process from Microsoft.
All right, we'll go optional on this one with a little hand clap for Satya and his master chess playing that continues. What do we have next, Ankaj?
Okay, the next one comes from Bessemer Venture Partners, and it's their annual State of the Cloud report. But this time, AI is all over the reports. That they talk about how big tech is battling over AI foundational models, the rise of multi-model models, and AI agents, and a lot of other things.
Yeah, pretty comprehensive piece about the space. Some of it Captain Obvious, but some of it interesting. What do you think, John?
Essential. Ding ding. For sure. It's a long read. Yes, I know. Nobody thinks our executives read, but they can. You know, this is essential. Look, first of all, their characterization and asking about where the control in the market's going to be. Is it going to be at the application layer, the model layer, and so forth? I think is exactly right. And they have, 90% of the value of the money put into AI has been put in by corporate venture capital, which I think is really interesting, by the big, Oracle through Microsoft and so forth. Ankash, if you could scroll down and go down farther, then there's a whole conversation around the nature of what's going to happen to application level, vertical level. I think it's very smart. Talks about how the foundation. Sorry, if you go up a bit. Sorry, Ankash. If you go up a bit, just here's keep going till you hit the histograms, the bar charts. Up. There, more, a little more. Keep going. Right there. Stop. Okay. You look at, this is the dough across, where it's going: foundational models, applications, technology, and tools. I think it's really interesting that the investment is corporate venture capital, and this would be, it's understandable when you have $1 trillion market capitalization companies. How are they going to push forward? This is a big number in absolute. It's a small number in relative, compared to the market capitalization of folks like NVIDIA and so forth. I'll tell you one thing that I think is underplayed in this is the role of NVIDIA. When you look at how NVIDIA is partnering up to create intelligence engines in each area, that's the only criticism I have of this report, because NVIDIA's got a model because they can extract the value through the chip, right? So they can get, and they're partnering with folks like Siemens, who's the big ServiceNow, in terms of creating vertical inference engines. But other than that, which combines a couple of these things together, other than that oversight, I think this is a fantastic report. Akash, you go way down the bottom near, and I want to get the pie chart of services. One of the things, we had predicted, well, there's two other things I'd like to say. One of the things we had predicted, well, actually three, sorry, voice is going to be big, which they talk about. Stop right there. Yeah, okay. This, I think, is a really cool illustration. So services spend in the US GDP is 13%, and software licenses are 1%. What they're basically saying, this is the story of Harvey, for law and so forth. Professional services, this is the tech enablement of professional services, and I think this is going to be a very near-term thing. The other thing they talk about is the implications for software, which is going to, they basically said, look, nobody's going to be doing software without these tools and so forth. And then the last thing I want to highlight is the attention economy. The attention economy right now is dominated by Facebook, and in terms of just pure hours. ChatGPT 4 now is like third in the attention economy in terms of where people are spending their time, which I think is interesting. I think that's just the beginning, because I think all of the social media stuff is going to be infused with the kind of things that we saw from Claude and others. People are going to just be spending time hacking around, developing, and so forth. So anyway, I would say this is with the exception of the role of NVIDIA, which I think is overlooked, I think this is a very well thought through report, very fact-based, and will certainly give a grounding to our AI leader to answer a bunch of important questions like who's going to win, who's not, and what do we know and what we don't.
Yeah, and speaking of NVIDIA, it's surprising they didn't talk about them last night that much, because if you scroll up to the very top of the report, Ankash, they have a chart where they show kind of like
who's invested in what,
growth, and that top line is NVIDIA.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Absolutely.
But I think, John, they kind of decided to specifically avoid NVIDIA because it mucks up. It's a hardware piece, and they focused really on software. Maybe they should have said it, but I think it was a conscious choice. It wasn't an omission.
Yeah, it's a conscious mistake.
Yeah, I mean they're building out their cloud capabilities, right? They know that.
I mean, NVIDIA is beautiful. I mean, look, we're going back to like when IBM was vertically integrated. Back in 1983, IBM had 87% of all the market capitalization in tech. Okay, and they're vertically integrated. And I think NVIDIA's. I mean, you look at who they're partnering with and how they're developing it. I mean, they're launching a physical model with Siemens. So we talk about Roblox. That's like child's play. They're building ships, and they have to understand the physics of the interaction. And they'll be able to throw off little.
If I can jump in, just an observation on that. Like NVIDIA has gone from the third largest to the largest market cap company, putting on over $1 trillion in market cap. $1 trillion. 1.3 in the last 6 weeks, 1.3 trillion. I can see that some of this might have just been a little bit written before this has happened. A lot of people don't realize like that is unprecedented growth. But also, to be fair, the word Microsoft is only in this report twice, and the word Google is only in this report twice. They did a very good job of staying away. And the only reason Microsoft and Google are in there one more time is because they have foundation models.
Yeah.
So it's actually a very vendor agnostic report, to their credit as well.
Yeah, so what they were trying to do, and remember, this is Bessemer, they're all about innovation and equal startups that are pushing the envelope in different places here, like they've put it into trends and the like, or areas. And I give them a lot of kudos for staying put on that focus and showing us what are the startups in that particular segment and piecing out what's happening and who potentially can win. That, I think, is a great focus, and I agree with Essential. It has to be read.
Yeah, agree. I'm actually going to write to them right after we get off and say, please make it so that we can blow up your charts. They've got some really good charts in there, market maps, and like these tiny logos that you can't see. And I really want to pull those out and use them in some of my reports that I'm working on. So I'm gonna give them a little call today. So
I think it's kind of interesting that this is a fund that basically was. If you think about Henry Bessemer, when he invented the Bessemer steel process, he was kind of like he created a transformer of the steel business, if you will. And here they are investing.
All right, an essential read number 2 of essential for today. What do we have next? Actually, speaking of which, Adam, you should bring up in the background the chart about how we rate. If we have a couple minutes at the end, we'd flash it up for people.
Well, I don't know if we will, but yeah.
Go ahead, Ankash.
Yeah. So the next one comes from character.ai, and they talk about how they are optimizing AI inference at their firm.
All right. What do we have on this? Adam.
Yeah. So this I think is optional. It's basically character talking about the things they're doing to optimize the way they do their inferencing. The one thing that I think is absolutely stand out in this article right there, it says, today we serve more than 20,000 inference queries per second, which is 20% of the request volume by Google search at roughly 100,000 per second. So to give people a sense of how much traffic is going through character AI right now, like it is the platform that people are spending more time on than anything else right now, than Facebook, than TikTok, than Instagram. So if people haven't heard of character AI, if they aren't aware so much of the sheer volume, to be doing 20% of Google search traffic is a tremendous amount of inference queries per second. But this is more about, given that massive volume, what are they doing to optimize the inference queries they're doing, and that's probably optional.
Yes and no. If Tim was here, he would have said a lot of how we swapped memory to optimize the performance, right? This is same thing. So you are very careful which is on the chip, which is not, and you're moving it around to optimize the access to the data needed. So we will have to have more of this to do stuff. And so I think for the people who are putting AI projects in production, this is important because it optimizes the performance, but also cost. It's a technique, it's technical, but I think I wonder whether we should put it as important.
It just felt kind of like research. It was sort of them publishing their research.
So
I don't know how people can really apply this, but it's a really great point. I mean, as people look at production, this stuff is going to be essential. So it might be important news for that reason. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually have a link to the more detail. I didn't read it, but I think it is important to highlight that this is technical, this is a technique, but they achieved 33% of improvement in performance and cost. So it's important. And they essentially blocked, they're saying, look, we have this success in the market. We can't scale because of that. And here's what we invented to actually address this. I mean, come on, it's important.
All right, we've got a passionate plea for important. We've got an optional. Let's break that tie. What do you think?
Important. I think it's interesting. The Adam, just one thing. You're saying that character AI has more people on it longer than Facebook does?
Yeah, because they're staying on there and chatting with these
characters.
Agents. They're spending more time on it than YouTube.
I
I could be wrong, and the numbers may have changed, but that's what I recall was
okay.
always a standout about.
That's amazing. First of all, that's even in that ballpark. It's amazing, right?
For a long time, it's number 2 behind ChatGPT in all AI apps. I don't know if it still is, but about 3 months ago, it was. And this is why actually
the data in the Bessemer report says it's not even in the same ballpark. It's like, Facebook is like whatever. 20% of the attention available on ChatGPT is like 4. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's huge. Yeah, I mean, I think this whole thing. I was cynically thinking this is a great plea to get purchased by somebody big, right? If you have this memory management capability, all the big guys are trying to deal with this. So,
Meta.
that's
Just
exactly
Meta
what
play,
I
yeah.
thought. Meta should buy it.
Yeah, Meta should buy.
I mean, Meta's got a lot of innovation, operating system, memory management, data center management. This is, to your point, Luda, if I can get a 33% inference, efficiency in serving up the stuff I have to serve up at Meta, that probably means they can buy these folks for, I don't know, 10, 20 billion and still make money.
Yeah, that's true.
And then, John, that's why I think it's really going to bifurcate on this attention economy. It's going to go to B2C interface, things like this. That's very different than powerful APIs for the enterprise market. So this is yet another indication these roads are really going to start forking in my mind.
But this is going to sit at both, right? The memory management is just going to need to be served.
Correct.
Yeah.
Fair
Sorry,
enough.
I didn't talk either.
Yeah. And employees still need a good user experience, right? I mean, if they're going to use these tools in certain ways that aren't going to be necessarily like embedded into applications that they already have, I mean, they're this consumer and the employee is the same person. So we'll see.
Well, you also have to think about machine to machine. I mean, the machine to machine interactions are going to be incredibly. Everything's going to look like a stock market. You look at, you're sitting there and I'm monitoring satellites, or I want to know how my cell network is working, or I want to, do stuff with my fleet of trucks and stuff. I mean, in the middle I'm running a power plant. It's just all these transactions are going to be birthed as we get the semantics of how to monitor and the intelligence. And then it's going to be a whole set of there's going to be orders of magnitude more transactions as we get more computable.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we're going to land on important on this one. Let's move on to our last article. We still actually, believe it or not, have one more. It's been a robust, active day here.
Yep. So the last one comes from Ethan Mollick, and he talks about related expertise, how every one of us is in R&D right now.
All right, Luda, what do you think about this piece?
I put an important on it. It's a little lengthy, but it makes a very interesting point about the AI models are useful when they're in the hands of an expert who knows how to evaluate the responses, who knows how to tweak it and make it into a real good assistant, if you will, or an agent, right? So that's an argument throughout the articles with some examples and good thinking. So I really think that it is correct for adoption purposes inside an enterprise, if every person who absolutely has some expertise, right, uses it in this way, like Claude 3.5, right? Hey, if you do it with certain expertise in your area, you will advance the enterprise dramatically, right? So I really think it's an important article to read.
Yeah, as I was reading this, I was trying to rectify his point, which I totally agree with, right? I agree with it because I sit there, right? I'm a writer. It's what I've been doing for decades. And, when I look at some of the text that comes out of ChatGPT, et cetera, I'm kind of like, I can see what's wrong with it, but I can also see why some people are like, oh my God, that's great. And it's probably better than what, 50% of the population could write on its own. So I find that value, but I'm trying to rectify that with the statistics, right? That we keep seeing that the experts only get this much boost, and it's kind of that middle of the pack that really gets the most productivity gains. And I think what I'm reading into this really is it's like the expert level is the one that's going to actually help you make the application and make it better, right? This SME that's going to kind of team up and help you to be able to evaluate tools and figure out where you need to tweak them and such. And that's the only way I could kind of like rectify those two data points. But I did enjoy the article as well and put it as important. Do we have any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think this is a thing that we've been pushing hard, which is, look, people are looking at the problem from an organizational standpoint. They're looking at the problem entirely the wrong way. They're looking at it as an IT project, a bunch of experts and so forth. And, he calls it centralized. We're saying, no, this is like the quality movement. You have to redo WINS work, symbol work, completely from the ground up. And we're just at the beginning of that. And I hear you, David, about the current implementations you're moving the experts up some, but you also have to think about the productivity impact of taking experts and making them 10% better. The top end of the distribution gets 10% better in any company. That creates more than 10% impact on profit, right? So, because you're moving the high end up. So if you can move the high end up at all, given the fact that organizational systems are trying to make those people more productive anyway, that's phenomenal. And the fact that you can take the bottom end of the distribution and bring it up, that's huge. And we haven't begun to see the wins work automation and redo, power tools for knowledge work, right? And Ethan, I think he's wrong-headed to call it everybody's doing R&D. They're not doing R&D. No. And you have to remember that, look, if you look at the Gallup polls, 60% of the people in 60% of the people in organizations, are not committed at all. They're just doing busy work, right? 15% of the people are trying to bring the organization down, and only like 20% of the organization is actually engaged. And so I think that I don't think these researchers have any clue about like the true nature of work in the big, massive meat of most organizations. And when this stuff gets out there, and heaven's sakes, I can take, these things and make them, I can automate this crazy work. I mean, think about some, low-level programmer who's refactoring COBOL software. I mean, that poor hack. I mean, that's like shoveling out a stable. I mean, give me a break, And this is a backhoe. This is a power hose. This is a front end loader to take the manure out of the stable, out of the software stable. I mean, it's going to go like with this. Anyway.
And one quick example, I know we're jammed for time, is on SEO, which is going through a lot of changes here. A couple learning labs ago, Alden, CEO of Custom GPT, told us how he created 400 blog posts for his website using AI to optimize SEO. So, this idea you can actually use these power tools to even get an advantage in today's SEO world as we march towards this bloodbath is another very specific example.
All right, so we went with important on that one, and Adam is sharing our
real quickly. So based on our ratings page, I pulled all that data and had ChatGPT. This was a couple weeks ago. Perform an analysis, and as you can see, we have the most essentials on Fridays, than any other day of the week, and the most optional on Mondays. So just a bit of fun. And by the way, John, I did look here. You see, Character AI is 2 hours average time per day per user, whereas you look at Facebook, it's 30 to 40 minutes. Instagram, TikTok, Twitter.
I thought you were saying my mistake. I thought you were saying total time. You're talking about dwell time for people who are actually doing it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm talking about how long people spend on their platform who use the platform.
Yes, but how long a person spends per person, not the total amount. I thought you were saying the total amount.
No, they're not nearly big enough in terms of the daily users.
That was my disjuncture. My mistake.
Given this data, I'm interested to see how the company we talked about yesterday does, Butterfly, which is kind of taking Character AI's concept a little bit further, where you don't just interact with the AIs interact with each other, and you're interacting with multiple AIs. It's kind of a social network of AI and humans. We'll see where that one goes, right? It seems like maybe Character AI might get some good ideas off of that and put it into their own product. But okay, so we've grossly gone over our time, but I would say I can see we still have a lot of viewers, which is maybe making an argument for how I've really wanted to move this show to 8 o'clock so that I can sleep a little bit longer. But let's look at our summary quickly here today. Ankaj, we've got 2 essentials. Naturally, it's Friday, so we have some essentials, as we saw. The Claude announcement, the Cloud report from Bessemer that focuses on AI. We've got 2 importance at the end, Character AI's way of optimizing inference, and Mr. Ethan Malick's article on ways that we can develop AIs with our expertise that are in our organization. Any announcements before we take off?
Yeah, so one, I think I want to kudos Adams to actually demonstrating using these tools. Our learning lab on Monday is going to be a showcase. Going to be Zora who's the CTO at a startup called Overwatch, and they are actively working in developing agents. So she's going to walk through what are exactly AI agents, where do they work, where don't they work, and share her view on where she sees the future of agents going. So join us at 7 o'clock Eastern. Sign up via our meetup group.
All right, fantastic. And do sign up for our newsletter. You can find the link where you found us to get on this show. Hit our YouTube up, subscribe, and happy reading this weekend. Hope that you enjoy the pieces that we picked out for you, and we will see you again on Monday.